Introduction. On 15th August 1947, India woke to a new dawn of freedom. Finally, we were masters of our own destiny. After some 200 years of British rule, the job of nation building was now in our own hands. The leaders of independent India had to decide, among other things, the type of economic system most suitable for most suitable for our nation. A system which would promote welfare of all rather than a few. There are different types of economic systems. Let's see box number 2.1. Types of economic systems. Every society has to answer three questions. What goods and services should be produced in the country? How should the goods and services be produced? Should the producers use more human labor or more capital, which is machines, or capital can be basically land, machines, money, for producing things? How should the goods and services be distributed among people? One answer to these questions is to depend on the market forces of the supply and demand. In a in a market economy, also called the capitalism, only those only those consumer goods will be produced that are in demand, that is, goods that can be sold profitably either in domestic or in foreign markets. If cars are in demand, cars will be produced. Bicycles are in demand, bicycles will be produced. If labor is cheaper than capital, more labor intensive method of production will be used, and vice versa. In a capitalist society, the goods produced are distributed among people not on the basis of what people need but on the basis of purchasing power. The ability to buy goods and services, that is, one has to have the money in the pocket to buy it. Low cost housing Low cost housing for the poor is much needed but will not count as a demand in the market sense because the poor do not have the to purchasing power to the market sense, because the poor do not have the purchasing power to back the demand. As a result, this commodity will not be produced and supplied as market forces, such as society did not appeal to Jawaharlal Nehru, our first Prime Minister, for it meant that great majority of people of the country would be left behind without the chance to improve their quality of life. What is a socialist society? Socialist society answers three questions in a total different manner. In a socialist society, the government decides what goods are to be produced in accordance with the needs of society. It is assumed that the government knows what is good for the people of the country, and so the desires of individual consumers are not given much importance. The government decides how goods are to be produced and how they should be distributed. So basically, all the decisions are in the hands of the government. What will they produce? How will it be distributed? Will it serve the individual or the public in general? In principle, distribution under socialism is supposed to be based on what people need and not on what they can afford to purchase. Unlike under capitalism, for example, a socialist nation provides free healthcare to all its citizens. Strictly, a socialist society has no private property since everything is owned by the state. Example, it is in Cuba and China. For example, most of the economic activities are governed by the socialistic principles. Most economies are mixed economies. Now, what is the mixed economy? That is, the government and the market come together and they answer the three questions of what to produce, how to distribute what is produced. In a mixed economy, the market will provide whatever goods and services it can produce well. and the government will provide essential goods and services which market fails to do. Okay, with that understanding we can move forward. These are the different types of economic systems, and among them socialism appealed most to Jawaharlal Nehru. However, he was not in favor in the kind of socialism established in the former Soviet Union, where all means of production, that is factories and farms in the country, were owned by the government. There was no private property. It is not possible in a democracy like India for government to change the ownership pattern of land and other properties of its citizens in the way that it was done in the former Soviet Union. Nehru and many other leaders and thinkers of the newly independent India sought an alternative to the extreme version of capitalism that was socialism, basically sympathizing with the socialistic outlook. They found the answer in an economic system which, in their view, combined the best features of socialism without its drawbacks. In this view, India would be a socialist society with a strong public sector but also with private property and democracy. The government would plan for the economy with private sector being encouraged to be a part of the plan effort. India, the Industrial Policy Resolution of 1948 and the directive principles of the Indian Constitution reflected this outlook. 1950, the Planning Commission was set up with the Prime Minister as its chairperson. The era of 5 year plans had begun. Now let's understand what is a plan. A plan spells out how the resource of a nation should be put to use. It should have some general goals as well as specific objectives which are to be achieved within a specified period of time. In India, plans were of 5 years duration and were called 5 year plans. We borrowed this from the former Soviet Union, the pioneer of the national planning. Our plan documents up to the year 2017 not only specify the objectives to be attained in the 5 years of a plan but also what is to be achieved over a period of 20 years. This long term plan is called perspective plan. The 5 year plans were supposed to provide the basis of the perspective plan. It will be unrealistic to expect all the goals of a plan to be given equal importance in all the plans. In fact, the goals may actually be in conflict. For example, the goal of introducing modern technology may be in conflict with the goal of increasing employment if the technology reduces the need for labor. The planners have to balance the goal, a very difficult job indeed. We find different goals being emphasized in different plans in India. India's 5 year plan did not spell out how much of each and every good and service is to be produced. This is neither possible nor necessary. The former Soviet Union tried to do this and failed. It is enough if the plan is specific about the sectors where it plays a commanding role, for instance, power generation and irrigation, while leaving the rest to the market. Now, what was the goal of the 5 year plans? A plan should have some clearly specified goals. The goals of the 5 year plans were growth, modernization, self reliance, and equity. Growth, modernization, self reliance, and equity. This does not mean that all plans have given equal importance to all these goals. Due to limited resources, a choice has to be made in each economic plan about which of the goals is given primary importance. Nevertheless, the planners have to ensure that as far as possible the policies of the plans do not contradict these four goals. Let us now learn about the goals of planning in some detail. Growth. It refers to the increase in country's capacity to produce the output of goods and services within the country. It also implies either a larger stock of productive capital or a larger size of supporting services like transport, banking, or an increase in the efficiency of productive capital and services. A good indicator of economic growth in the language of economics is steady increase in GDP. The GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced in the country during a year. You have studied this concept in class 10th as well. You can think of GDP as a cake, and is increase is increase in the size of the cake. If cake is larger, more people can enjoy it. It is necessary to produce more goods and services if people of India are to enjoy. In other words, the first 5 year plan, a more richer of the first 5 year plan, a more richer and varied life. So if you are not able to understand this particular part, then I'll tell you where this is from. In the very beginning of this chapter, there is this quote given: the central objective of planning in India is to initiate a process of development which will raise the living standards, open out to the people new opportunities for a richer and more varied life. It was stated in the first 5 year plan. Okay. So here we understood growth further. We were here. The GDP of a country is derived from different sectors of the economy, namely agriculture sector, industrial sector, and the service sector. Contribution made by each of these sectors make up the structural composition of the economy. In some countries, growth in agriculture contributes more to the GDP, while in some countries, the growth in the service sector contributes more to GDP growth. Now let's read about this now that we have done growth. So we all know about PC Mahalanobis, the architect of Indian planning. Many distinguished thinkers contributed to the formulation of India's 5 year plans. Among them, the name of the statistician Prasanta Chandra Mahalanobis stands out. Planning in real sense of the term began with the second 5 year plan. The second plan, a landmark contribution to the development planning in general, laid down the basic ideas regarding goals of Indian planning. This plan was based on the ideas of Mahalanobis. In that sense, he can be regarded as the architect of Indian planning. He was born in 1893 in Calcutta, educated at the Presidency College in Calcutta and at Cambridge University in England. His contribution to the subject of statistics brought him international fame. In 1945, he was made a fellow, which is a member of Britain's Royal Society, one of the most prestigious organizations of scientists. Only the most outstanding scientists are made the member of the society. Mahalanobis established the Indian Statistical Institute in Calcutta, started a journal which was named as Sankhya, which still serves as a respected forum for statisticians to discuss their ideas. Both ISI and Sankhya are highly regarded by statisticians, economists all over the world to this day. During the second plan period, Mahalanobis invited many distinguished economists from India and abroad to advise him on India's economic development. Some of these economists became Nobel Prize winners later. which shows that he could identify individuals with talent. Among the economists invited by Mahalanobis were those who were very critical of the socialist principles of the second plan. In other words, he was willing to listen to what his critics had to say, the mark of a great scholar. Many economists today reject the approach to planning formulated by Mahalanobis, but he will always be remembered for playing a vital role in putting India on the road to economic progress. And statisticians continue to profit from his contribution to statistical theory. Now we'll read about the service sector. As a country develops, it undergoes structural change. In case of India, the structural change is peculiar. Usually with development, the share of the agriculture declines and the share of the industry becomes dominant. At higher levels of development, the service sector contributes more to the GDP than the other two sectors. In India, the share of agriculture sector in GDP was more than 50%, as we would expect for a poor country to be. But by 1990, the share of service sector was 40.59%, more than that of agriculture or industry. Like what we find in developed nations. This phenomenon of growing share of the service sector was accelerated in the post-1991 period, marked the onset of globalization in the country, which we will discuss in chapter 3. So now we know about the structural composition and what we mean by the service sector. Now let's talk about the second goal, which is modernization. To increase the production of goods and services, the producers have adopted new technology. For example, farmer can increase the output of the farm by using new seed varieties instead of old ones. Similarly, a factory can increase output by using a new type of machine. Adoption of new technology is called modernization. However, modernization does not refer only to the use of new technology but also the changes in the social outlook, such as recognition that women should have same rights as men. In a traditional society, women are supposed to remain at home while men work. A modern society makes use of the talents of women in the workspace, in banks, factories, schools, etc. And such a society, in most occasions, is more prosperous. Self-reliance is our third goal. A nation can promote economic growth, modernization by using its own resources or by using resources imported from other nations. The first 7 5-year plans gave importance to self-reliance, which means avoiding imports of those goods which could be produced in India itself. This policy was considered a necessity in order to reduce our dependence on foreign countries, especially for food. It is understandable that people who were recently freed from foreign domination should give importance to self-reliance. Further, it was feared that dependence on imported food supplies, foreign technology, foreign capital may make India's sovereignty vulnerable to foreign interference in our policies. Our fourth goal is equity. Now growth, modernization and self-reliance by themselves may not improve the kind of life which people are living. A country can have high growth, most modern technology developed in the country itself, also have most of its people living in poverty. It is important to ensure that the benefits of economic prosperity reach the poor sections of the society as well, instead of being enjoyed only by the rich. So, in addition to growth, modernization, and self reliance, equity is also important. Every Indian should be able to meet his/her basic needs such as food, a decent house, education, healthcare, and inequality in the distribution of wealth should be reduced. Let us now see how the first 7 year plans, covering the period from 1950 to 1990, attempted to attain these four goals and the extent to which they succeeded in doing so, with reference to agriculture, industry, and trade. You will study the policies and development issues taken after 1991 in chapter number 3. Now, from here, we'll read agriculture, then industry and trade, then trade policy, okay, and then conclusion. Okay.